Hey, tonight we're diving into a fascinating slice of medieval life, the surprising curse that came with wealth and power. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. And if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a quick like or even a subscribe. It helps more than. I'm always curious where you all are listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there, love, seeing our little global community connect through these stories. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1398 in a grand stone manor house nestled in the English countryside. The morning sunlight filters through the narrow windows, casting long beams across your chamber. You stretch beneath heavy wool blankets on a feather-stuffed mattress, a luxury only the wealthy can afford. Most peasants sleep on straw pallets that harbor fleas and bedbugs, but you are Lord William Thornbrook, one of the richest nobles in the county. The good news is that you're wealthy beyond imagination compared to the common folk who work your lands. The bad news, your big toe feels like someone is driving a red-hot poker through it, and the slightest movement sends waves of agony up your leg. You've got gout, what physicians call the disease of kings. Your day begins, as it always does, with servants rushing to your bedside, unlike the peasants who rise before dawn to milk cows and tend fields. You've slept well past sunrise. The head servant, Thomas, approaches with a silver basin of rose, scented water for washing your face and hands. Behind him, two younger servants carry your clothing for the day. Fine wool tunics, dyed with expensive colors, lined with silk, imported from far-off lands. My Lord Thomas says with a bow, the household awaits your commands for the day. The steward needs approval for the feast, preparations, and you cut him off with a groan. Send for the physician, my foot. It's the gout again. Thomas's face falls. He's seen your gout, attacks before, and knows what's coming. Right away, my lord. You try to sit up, and the movement sends a jolt of pain so intense through your foot that you gasp. The swelling has returned. Your big toe joint now resembles a ripe red plum, hot to the touch, and so tender that even the weight of a linen sheet feels like torture. This, you reflect bitterly, is the hidden cost of your privileged life. While peasants suffer from malnutrition and exposure, the nobility faces different torments. The peasants might envy your abundant food, your warm shelter, your fine clothing, but they don't see the price your body pays for such luxuries. The chamber door opens, and in shuffles Master Gilbert, your physician. Unlike the village healers who treat the common folk with herbs and folk remedies, Master Gilbert studied at the great medical school in Méliès, France. His services cost more per visit than a peasant might earn in a month. But what good is wealth if not to purchase the finest care? My Lord Master Gilbert says, gravely setting down his leather satchel of medical instruments. The gout has returned. I see. You grimace like a bad penny. What cursed thing have I eaten this time? Master Gilbert strokes his gray beard, examining your swollen foot without touching it. The skin is stretched tight and shiny with a deep red hue that speaks of the fire burning beneath. As I've explained before, my lord, it's an imbalance of the humors. The phlegm, cold and moist, has settled in your joint where it becomes corrupt and causes pain. But the underlying cause? He hesitates, knowing you won't like his answer. Yes, you interrupt impatiently. My rich foods and wine the same lecture every time, Gilbert. The physician nods, unperturbed by your irritation. Indeed, my lord, your body produces too much uric humor from the rich meats, the sweet wines, the delicacies your table offers nightly. These corrupt humors crystallize in the cooler parts of your body, most often the feet as they are furthest from the heart's warmth. What Master Gilbert doesn't say, but what you both know, is that your gout attacks have become more frequent. Last year, you suffered perhaps 3 bouts. This year, you've already endured 4. And it's only autumn. Each time the pain lasts longer and your recovery grows slower. Some nobles you know have become so crippled by repeated attacks that they can barely walk their toes and fingers permanently deformed by the accumulation of what physicians call tophi hard, chalky deposits under the skin. This is the cruel irony of your station. While peasants labor from dawn to dusk, strengthening their bodies with work and subsisting on simple fare, you enjoy a life of relative leisure and sumptuous food that slowly poisons your joints. Master Gilbert opens his satchel and removes several glass vials and packets of herbs. I've brought several remedies. My lord, first a pus of herbs to reduce the heat and swelling. From his bag, he produces a bundle of dried herbs, meadowsweet, willow bark, and other plants known to reduce inflammation. These will be ground and mixed with wine vinegar to create a paste that, when applied to your throbbing joint, provides blessed relief. And for the pain, he continues a tincture of poppy. This is the most precious medicine in his collection. Distilled from the seed pods of poppies grown in distant lands, it dulls even the most excruciating pain. But it comes with its own price. It clouds the mind, and used too frequently creates a craving that can consume a person. You've seen nobles who became dependent on poppy tincture, their fortunes dwindling as they purchased more and more of the costly substance. I've also brought autumn crocus. Master Gilbert says, producing a small pouch. The Byzantine physicians found it effective for gout. It must be used carefully. Too much causes vomiting, and worse, but the correct dose can shorten the duration of your suffering. What neither of you knows is that this remedy, autumn crocus, contains what modern physicians will one day call colchine, one of the few truly effective treatments for gout. The Byzantine doctors stumbled upon this treatment centuries ago, and its use has spread throughout Europe, passed from physician to physician, without understanding exactly why it works. As Master Gilbert prepares his remedies, grinding herbs with a small mortar and pestle, you stare out the window at your estate. Your lands stretch for miles, fields, forests, villages full of peasants who work from sunrise to sunset. You collect taxes from them, protect them with your soldiers, and judge their disputes. In return, they produce the wealth that allows you to live as you do. Outside, you can see workers harvesting the autumn crops. Men swing these through golden wheat. Women gather and bind the cut stalks. Children glean any fallen grain. Their movements are fluid and practiced, their bodies hardened by years of physical labor. None of them, you'd wager, suffer from gout. Here, my lord, Master Gilbert says, drawing your attention back. Drink this first. He hands you a small cup containing a dark liquid. The bitter taste of poppy fills your mouth and you force yourself to swallow. Soon a warm numbness will spread through your body, dulling the sharp edges of your pain. Next comes the pus. Master Gilbert gently applies the herb paste to your inflamed joint, then wraps it with clean linen. The coolness of the pus provides immediate, if modest, relief. The autumn crocus. I've mixed with wine, he explains, offering another cup. Drink it slowly. It may cause some stomach discomfort, but that passes quickly. You drink as instructed, grimacing at the strange taste. Then you lie back against your pillows, waiting for the remedies to take effect. Rest now, my lord. Master Gilbert advises no rich foods today. Barley water, a little bread, perhaps some boiled chicken, without the skin. I'll return this evening to check your progress. As he packs his supplies, you gesture to Thomas, who has been waiting quietly by the door. Pay Master Gilbert his fee. The physician bows and departs, leaving you alone with your thoughts and your pain. Through the window, you can hear the rhythmic swish of scythes cutting wheat, the calls of workers to each other, a harvest song rising from the fields. Their lives are hard in ways you'll never experience. The constant worry about having enough food, the vulnerability to weather and disease, the relentless physical labor that wears down bodies before their time. Yet here you lie in your fine bed, in your stone manor house, crippled by pain that is ironically a direct result of your privilege. This is the great equalizer. While rank and wealth can shield you from many hardships, your human body remains vulnerable, subject to its own particular sufferings killer. The poppy tincture begins to take effect, wrapping your thoughts in cotton and dulling the sharp edges of your pain. As you drift towards sleep, you wonder, is your gout truly the worst thing about being rich in medieval times, or is it merely the physical manifestation of a deeper truth? The excess, even when it appears enviable, carries its own punishments. When you wake, the sun has moved across the sky, and the quality of light suggests it's mid-afternoon. The pain in your foot has subsided from excruciating to merely throbbing thanks to Master Gilbert's remedies. You can think more clearly now that the worst has passed. Thomas appears at your bedside with a tray, barley water and bread, my lord, as the physician ordered. The barley water is bland and the bread plain, peasant fare, though of higher quality than what they would eat. Your ordinary meals are far different. Roasted meats swimming in rich sauces, game birds, fish on fast days, all accompanied by fine wines and ales, followed by sweet confections made with expensive sugar. Your table reflects your status, each dish a statement of your wealth and power. But that abundance is precisely what has brought you to this state. The human body wasn't designed for such luxury, especially when paired with the sedentary lifestyle of nobility. Peasants eat simple foods, mostly grains, vegetables, and occasionally meat, and work physically all day. Their bodies process what they consume, leaving little to accumulate as the crystals that cause your suffering. My Lord, Thomas says hesitantly, the steward still needs directions for tomorrow's feast. The merchant from London has arrived with the spices you ordered, and tell him to proceed as planned. You interrupt. But I want simpler dishes added to the table. Less meat, more fish. And tell the kitchens to reduce the use of wine in the sauces. Thomas looks surprised, but nods. Yes, my lord. And shall I tell the guests you're indisposed? You consider this. The feast is to honor a visiting baron, a potential ally, whose support you need. To be absent would be a political misstep. No, you decide. I'll attend. Have the servants prepare a chair with cushions where I can rest my foot and find my walking staff. After Thomas leaves, you carefully swing your legs over the edge of the bed. The movement awakens fresh pain in your toe, but it's manageable now. You stand gingerly, keeping weight off the affected foot, and hop step to the window. From here, you can see the inner courtyard of your manor servants. Hurry about their tasks, preparing for tomorrow's feast. A cart laden with barrels of ale is being unloaded. Smoke rises from the kitchen buildings, where cooks are already preparing foods that require slow cooking. It takes an enormous amount of labor to maintain your way of life. Dozens of people working constantly so that you and your family can live in comfort and project the image befitting your station. This perhaps is another burden of wealth in medieval times, the constant need to display your status through consumption and spectacle. Your table must groan with food. Your clothes must be of the finest materials. Your home must impress. Anything less would suggest weakness or decline. So you spend lavishly, consume abundantly, and your body pays the price. You think of King Henry IV, who suffers so severely from gout that he sometimes cannot walk or ride a horse. Yet he continues to feast and drink, as his position demands, trapped in the same cycle as you. The disease of kings. Indeed, a mark of status that becomes its own prison. Evening approaches, and Master Gilbert returns as promised. He examines your foot, nodding with satisfaction at the reduced swelling. The remedies have helped, he observes. The crisis is passing. But my lord, to prevent future attacks, he trails off, knowing you already know what he will say. Less rich food, less wine. You finish for him. More walking, more water. Precisely, he agrees. Particularly, avoid organ meats. Liver, kidneys, sweetbreads. Limit game birds. Reduce your consumption of wine, especially the sweet varieties. This is sound advice based on centuries of observation by physicians who noticed patterns in gout sufferers. They don't understand the biochemistry. That won't come for hundreds of years, but they've recognized that certain foods and drinks reliably trigger attacks. I'll try. You promise. Though both of you know the challenges, your entire social life revolves around feasting and drinking. To abstain is to withdraw from the very activities that cement alliances and demonstrate your position. After Master Gilbert leaves your wife, Lady Ilalenina comes to visit your chamber. Unlike you, she rose before dawn to oversee the household, managing servants, reviewing accounts, ensuring that every aspect of your large estate runs smoothly while you handle political matters and business affairs. William, she says, sitting carefully on the edge of your bed. How are you feeling? Better, you admit. Gilbert's remedies helped. She sighed, taking your hand. This is the second attack this month. You must take better care. Lady Ilalenina comes from a noble family herself and understands the expectations placed on someone of your rank, but she's also practical and clear-eyed. The feast tomorrow, she continues, I've instructed the cooks to prepare a separate plate for you with simpler foods. You can still sit at the high table and fulfill your duties as host without aggravating your condition. You smile gratefully. This is why you married her. Not just for the alliance between your families or the lands and money she brought to the marriage, but for her intelligence and care. Thank you. You say, I've been thinking perhaps we should change how we eat daily, not just during my gout attacks. She raises an eyebrow, like the monastic's plain food and prayer. You laugh then, Gius, as the movement jostles your foot. Not quite so extreme, but more fish, more vegetables, less of the rich sauces and sweet wines. Lady Elena considers this. It would save money that could be used elsewhere and might set a new fashion. You know how others at court copy whatever you do. This is true. As one of the wealthier and more influential nobles in the region, your choices influence others. If you begin eating more simply, it might become acceptable for other nobles to do the same. A welcome relief for those who struggle to maintain the expected level of conspicuous consumption. We'll try it, you decide. Starting after tomorrow's feast, as night falls, servants bring candles to light your chamber. The wax candles, another luxury that common people can't afford, cast a warm glow across the room. Most peasants simply go to bed when darkness falls or use rushlights made from reeds dipped in animal fat if they must stay. Awake, your candles are made from beeswax. Expensive but cleaner, burning and sweeter smelling than tallow. You think about the contrast between your life and theirs. They rise with the sun and work until their bodies are exhausted, eating simple foods and sleeping on straw. You wake when you choose conduct business and politics rather than physical labor. Eat rich foods that your body struggles to process and sleep on feathers and fine linen. They face starvation in bad years, exposure to the elements, the constant threat of disease with little medical care. You face gout, obesity, and the political dangers that come with your position. Different hardships for different stations, but hardships nonetheless. This, perhaps, is the wisdom to be found in your suffering. That no life, however privileged, is free from pain. That the human body has limits regardless of one's wealth or status. That excess, even when it's expected and admired, extracts its own price. As you drift towards sleep, your foot still throbbing, but bearably. So you resolve to find a better balance to maintain your position without destroying your health. It won't be easy in a world where consumption defines status, but if anyone can chart a new course, it's someone with the privilege and power to choose. Tomorrow will bring the feast with all its temptations and obligations. But perhaps the day after will bring the beginning of a wiser path, one where you enjoy the benefits of your station without falling victim to its excesses. The worst thing about being rich in medieval times isn't just the gout. It's the golden cage of expectations that keeps you consuming things that harm you. But even golden cages have doors, if one has the courage to find them and step through. Morning arrives with a pale sun, fighting through the mist that clings to your estate. You awaken to find your foot improved, still tender and slightly swollen. But the fierce burning pain has subsided. Master Gilbert's remedies have done their work, particularly the autumn. Crocus, which seems to shorten the duration of these attacks. Today is the feast, and despite your condition, you must fulfill your duties as host. Your status demands it. Reputation in medieval society is everything, more valuable than gold, more enduring than stone castles. One hint of weakness, one public failure, and whispers spread through the nobility like wildfire. Those whispers can undermine alliances, affect marriage prospects for your children, even reach the king's ear. So you rise, allowing Thomas and another servant to dress you in your finest garments. A tunic of deep blue wool, from Flanders with embroidery around the neck, and sleeves, a belt with silver buckles hose that fits snugly, and soft leather shoes that have been carefully modified to accommodate your swollen toe. The left shoe has been slit and additional leather sewn in, creating a pocket of space where your afflicted joint can rest without pressure. My walking staff, you remind Thomas, who hurries to fetch the polished oak stick, topped with a silver knob. It's ostensibly decorative. Many nobles carry such staffs as symbols of authority, but today it will serve a practical purpose, bearing weight that your painful foot cannot. You make your way carefully down the stone stairs of your manor house, each step a negotiation between dignity and pain. The great hall below is already bustling with activity. Servants hang fresh rushes mixed with herbs on the floor. Sweet-smelling plants that will release their fragrance when crushed underfoot, masking the inevitable smells of many bodies gathered in one space. Trestle tables are being set up in rows, with the high table on a raised platform at one end where you and your most honored guests will sit. Your steward, Henry, approaches with a bow. Unlike Thomas, who oversees your personal needs, Henry manages the entire estate, supervising other servants, handling finances, ensuring that your lands and household run smoothly. My lord, He says the preparations are well in hand. The Baron and his party were sighted on the road and should arrive within the hour. The kitchens report that all dishes are proceeding as planned. Good, you reply, leaning slightly on your staff and the special arrangements we discussed. Yes, my lord. Your chair at the high table has been cushioned as requested with a small stool for your foot, and Lady Elelenina has instructed the kitchen regarding your meal. You nod satisfied. These small accommodations will allow you to fulfill your social obligations without worsening your condition. This is the constant balance you must strike, maintaining the appearance and behaviors expected of your rank while managing the physical consequences they bring. Outside horns sound. The Baron's party has arrived sooner than expected. You straighten grip your staff more firmly and prepare to greet your guests. The pain in your foot is a dull throb now. Manageable if you're careful. You make your way to the courtyard where your household is assembling to welcome the visitors. Lady Elelenina joins you resplendent in a gown of deep green with a gold-embroidered belt and a delicate network of golden chains adorning her head. Together you present the image of prosperity and power that your position requires. The Baron's party enters the courtyard in a clattering of hooves and a flutter of banners. Baron Radcliffe is a burly man in his 40s. His face reddened by both wind and wine, his clothing rich but slightly disheveled from travel. He dismounts with a grunt that suggests he, too, might suffer from the ailments of nobility, though he covers it well. Lord Thornbrook. He booms, striding forward with his arms outstretched. How good to see you again. You step forward to meet him, careful to put minimal weight on your affected foot. Baron Radcliffe. Welcome to my home. We are honored by your presence. The formal greetings continue as the Baron's party. Family members, personal servants, and guards are all acknowledged according to their rank. This ritual of welcome is important, establishing the hierarchy and relationships that will govern the visit. Medieval society functions on such clear delineations: who sits where, who speaks when, who defers to whom. To violate these unwritten rules is to invite chaos. As the Baron's party is shown to their chambers to refresh themselves after their journey, you return to the great hall to oversee final preparations. The pain in your foot is intensifying with the activity, but you hide it well behind a nobleman's mask of composure. To show pain is to show weakness. The hall is transformed now. Trestle tables covered with clean linens, wooden trenches, at each place silver cups for the high table, and wooden or horn cups for those of lower rank. Fresh rushes carpet the floor, releasing the scent of meadow, sweet and lavender, when crushed underfoot. Servants hurry about with last-minute adjustments, and the steward directs it all with quiet authority. You make your way to the high table, where your modified chair awaits. Testing it, you find that the cushions support your body while allowing your painful foot to rest elevated on the small stool hidden beneath the table's drape. From here, you can preside over the feast without standing for long periods, a small mercy for which you're grateful. The kitchens send word that the first courses are ready, and you dispatch servants to inform the Baron and other guests that the feast will begin shortly. As you wait, Lady Elelenina joins you at the high table, leaning close to speak privately. You're in pain, she observes, her voice too low for others to hear. Manageable, you assure her. Though in truth, the throbbing has intensified to a steady burn. She gives you a knowing look. Master Gilbert left this for you? From a small pouch at her belt, she produces a vial of poppy tincture, just enough to dull the edge, not enough to cloud your mind. You accept it gratefully, taking a small sip when no one is looking. The bitter taste is followed by that familiar warming sensation that signals relief is coming, not complete. Relief. You'll still feel the pain, but it will be muffled, pushed to the background so you can focus on your duties as host. The guests begin to arrive in the hall, taking their places according to rank. The Baron and his immediate family join you at the high table while their attendants and your household knights and officials sit at the tables below. The lower servants will eat later, after the feast is concluded, making do with the leftovers, and simpler, fare prepared specifically for them. The meal begins with a ceremonial washing of hands. Servants move among the tables with basins of rose, scented water, and clean towels. This ritual of cleanliness is practical. Most food will be eaten with the fingers, but also symbolic, marking the transition into the formal meal. The first course arrives, borne by a procession of servants. For most guests, there are rich meat pastries, roasted fowl, and a soup of herbs and barley. At your place, as arranged with the kitchen, the offerings are simpler. Boiled chicken, without the fatty skin, bread, and a small portion of fish cooked with herbs. It's still luxurious compared to peasant fare, but far less likely to aggravate your gout than the dishes served to others. Baron Radcliffe, seated to your right, notices the difference. Not partaking of the full feast, Lord Thornbrook, he asks, tearing into a meat pastry with gusto. You smile diplomatically. A temporary measure. My physician advises caution with certain foods. The Baron grunts in understanding. Cursed gout. Is it the disease of kings and nobles? He lifts his wine cup in a half salute. I've had a touch of it myself in recent years. Damnable thing. Indeed, you agree, relieved at his understanding. The price we pay for our position, it seems. The Baron laughs, a booming sound that turns heads at nearby tables. Well said. The peasants don't suffer it, do they? Too busy breaking their backs in the fields to develop our refined ailments. There's truth in his jest. Gout is rarely seen among the working classes. Their diet of simple grains, vegetables, and occasional meat provides little opportunity for uric acid to accumulate. Their constant physical labor keeps their bodies processing efficiently. It's only when you combine rich foods, particularly organ meats, game birds, and certain fish with wine and a more sedentary lifestyle that gout flourishes. As the feast progresses, you observe the differences in consumption around you. The Baron eats and drinks prodigiously, as do many of the knights and officials at the lower tables. It's a point of pride for a nobleman to demonstrate his prosperity through abundant consumption. Yet you notice that some of the older men, particularly those who occasionally was, when shifting position, eat more moderately and water their wine. They too have learned the painful lessons that gout teaches. Between courses, minstrels perform singing ballads of chivalry and courtly love, playing lutes and small harps. This entertainment allows diners to rest between bouts of eating and provides a cultured atmosphere befitting a noble household. It also gives you an opportunity to converse with your guests, building the relationships that are the true purpose of such gatherings. I understand the king has imposed a new tax on wool exports, you say to Baron Radcliffe, steering the conversation toward matters of mutual interest. Your estates like his produce significant wool for export to Flanders, where it's woven into the fine cloth that clothed Europe's nobility. The Baron scowls indeed, and at the worst possible time, the merchants from Bruges are already complaining about the quality of last year's clip. Add this tax, and they'll look to Spain instead. This launches a discussion of trade taxes and royal policy that continues through the next course. Other nobles at the high table join in sharing information and opinions, This is how the medieval nobility conducts business, through conversations at feasts and gatherings, building networks of shared interest and mutual support. As the main courses are cleared away, and the sweeter dishes appear, fruits preserved in honey custards and small cakes flavored with expensive spices from the East. Your foot reminds you of its grievance. Despite the cushioned chair and elevated position, despite the poppy tincture and careful food choices, the pain has been steadily increasing throughout the meal. Lady Alelanina notices your discomfort and subtly signals to the steward. He approaches and bends to hear her quiet instruction, then nods and withdraws. Moments later, the minstrels begin a particularly engaging performance, a comic tale of a knight's misadventures that has the entire hall laughing. Under cover of this distraction, you shift in your seat, trying to find a position that offers relief. Perhaps some air, my lord lady suggests quietly. The tale will keep their attention for some time. You nod gratefully, using your staff and accepting her discreet support. You rise and make your way slowly to a side door that leads to a small garden attached to the great hall. The cool evening air is a relief after the warmth and noise inside. You should return, you tell Alelanina once you're seated on a stone bench. Our guests will notice if we're both absent. In a moment, she says, arranging her skirts as she sits beside you. First, tell me truly, how bad is the pain? You sigh. Dropping the mask of noble composure you've maintained throughout the feast, worsening the movement, the heat of the hall, you gesture helplessly. Even with all our precautions, it's flaring again. She takes your hand, her face concerned in the fading light. Should I send for Master Gilbert? You consider this. The physician could bring stronger remedies, but to summon him during the feast would draw attention to your condition and might insult the Baron. Medieval etiquette is clear. A host must not show weakness or discomfort that might make guests feel unwelcome. No, you decide. I can manage until the feast ends. Just a few moments here to gather myself. Lady Alelanina nods, understanding both your pain and the social constraints that force you to endure it in silence. This is another burden of nobility, the requirement to maintain appearances regardless of personal cost. After a brief rest, you return to the hall, timing your entrance during a lull in the entertainment. Few seem to have noticed your absence, and those who did assume you were attending to host duties. The Baron is deep in conversation with another guest, his cup refilled yet again with the sweet wine that will in time likely bring him the same suffering you're experiencing now. The feast continues for another hour. More food, more wine, more entertainment. You fulfill your duties as host, engaging in conversation, ensuring the Baron and other important guests feel appropriately honored, maintaining the delicate balance of medieval social politics despite the fire burning in your foot. Finally, the Baron rises, swaying slightly from the effects of wine. A magnificent feast, Lord Thornbrook. Your hospitality is as generous as your reputation suggested. This is the signal that the formal part of the evening is concluding. Some guests will retire to their chambers. Others will linger for more drinking and conversation. But the ritual obligations have been fulfilled. You can now withdraw without offense. You honor us with your presence. Baron, you reply, also standing despite the protest from your foot. My home is yours for as long as you wish to stay. After the final courtesies are exchanged, you make your way slowly back to your chamber, leaning heavily on your staff. The poppy tincture has worn off, and each step sends jagged spikes of pain shooting up your leg. By the time you reach your room, you're breathing heavily from the effort of maintaining composure. Thomas is waiting along with a young assistant. They help you undress and prepare for bed, removing the fine clothing and replacing it with a linen sleeping shirt. The modified shoe comes off last, revealing your toe, now visibly more swollen than it was this morning. The skin stretched tight and shiny. "Shall I send for Master Gilbert?" "My Lord Thomas?" asks, his face creased with concern. "Yes." You reply, too tired and in too much pain to maintain pretense, and bring cool water for my foot until he arrives. While waiting for the physician, you lie back against the pillows, your throbbing foot elevated on cushions. The feast was a success. The Baron is pleased. Alliances strengthened your reputation for hospitality, maintained. But the cost is written in the pain that pulses through your body with each heartbeat. This is the reality behind the glamour of medieval nobility. The physical price paid for social position. While peasants suffer from too little, you suffer from too much. Their bodies are worn down by labor and occasional hunger. Yours is poisoned by abundance. Neither fate is enviable. Just different forms of the same human vulnerability to circumstance. Master Gilbert arrives, his face grave when he sees your foot. "The feast, I presume?" You nod wearily. "I followed your advice as much as possible. Simpler food, watered wine. But the standing, the heat." He sigh, opening his satchel. "The body needs time to heal, my lord. Each attack makes the next more likely. Unless that healing is complete, he begins preparing a stronger pus than before, the pungent smell of herbs filling the chamber. And complete healing requires more than just waiting for the pain to subside. It requires ongoing change. This is the challenge you face. Not just recovering from this attack, but preventing the next one. And that means confronting the expectations and habits that define your position in society. Can you be a medieval lord without the feasting? The wine, the rich foods that are symbols of your status? Can you find a balance between the demands of your rank and the needs of your body? As Master Gilbert applies the fresh pus to your foot, the cool herbs bringing immediate if minor relief, you consider what changes might be possible, perhaps more walking when you're well, more water between cups of wine, more fish, and fewer game birds on your daily table. Small adjustments that might over time reduce the frequency and severity of your attacks. My Lord Master Gilbert advises packing up his supplies. I've left a stronger dose of poppy tincture for the night. Tomorrow we'll see how things stand. After he leaves, you take the tincture, grateful for the relief it will bring. As the medicine begins to work, dulling the sharp edges of your pain, you reflect on the day. Despite your condition, you fulfilled your duties. The feast achieved its purpose. The alliance with Baron Radcliffe is secure. Perhaps that's the real skill of nobility. Not just commanding wealth and power, but navigating the costs and constraints that come with it. Finding ways to meet the expectations of your position while protecting yourself from its excesses. It's a different kind of survival skill than those the peasants must master, but no less essential. The poppy tincture pulls you towards sleep, thoughts growing hazy and disconnected. Your last conscious reflection is that tomorrow, when the Baron departs, you'll begin implementing those small changes, a slightly different path that might lead to less suffering while still maintaining your place in the rigid hierarchy of medieval society. As you drift into sleep, the pain in your foot diminishes to a distant throb, a reminder of the bargain struck between privilege and its price. The disease of kings has marked you as it marks so many of your class, a painful brand of belonging to a world of excess that both elevates and punishes those who inhabit it. In the quiet darkness of your chamber, far from the noise and demands of the feast, your body begins its slow work of healing. Outside, the estate settles into night. Servants clean the great hall, putting away the remnants of the feast. Guards patrol the walls and courtyards. In the village beyond your manor, peasants sleep the deep sleep of physical exhaustion, their bodies tired but largely free of the crystalline deposits that torture your joints. Different lives, different sufferings. The medieval world turns on this axis of inequality, each person bearing their particular burdens according to their station. For now, yours is the burning pain of gout, the ironic curse of having too much in a world where most have too little. Morning arrives with the distant crowing of roosters and the soft murmur of servants beginning their daily tasks. The poppy tincture has worn off during the night, and you awaken to find your foot still swollen, but less painfully so. Master Gilbert's stronger pus seems to have drawn some of the heat from the inflamed joint. Through the narrow window of your chamber, you can see that the day promises to be fine. Clear blue sky, the kind of autumn crispness that makes physical activity pleasant rather than punishing. On such a day, had you been well, you might have joined the Baron for a hunt galloping through the forests of your estate, falcon on wrist, or hounds baying ahead, pursuing deer or boar. These are the pleasures of nobility that your gout often denies you. Thomas enters quietly carrying a tray with a pottery cup of steaming liquid. "Good morning, my lord master. Gilbert left this for you to drink upon waking." You prop yourself up against the pillows and accept the cup, sniffing cautiously. The bitter scent of herbs rises with the steam, meadowsweet, willow bark, and other plants known to reduce inflammation. Not a pleasant draught, but one you've become familiar with during your gout attacks. The Baron. You ask after forcing down the medicine, already breaking his fast. "In the hall, my lord. He mentioned plans to depart before midday." This is a relief. While Baron Radcliffe's visit was important, politically, hosting always requires energy. You can ill afford. When gout has you in its grip, once he leaves, you can focus on recovery without the need to maintain appearances. "Help me dress you," instruct. Nothing elaborate. "I'll break my fast privately here." Thomas selects simple clothing. A tunic of undyed wool, loose-fitting hose that won't constrain your swollen foot, and the modified shoe that accommodates your inflamed toe. Even with these accommodations, dressing is a careful negotiation with pain. Each movement that jostles your foot sends sharp reminders of your condition. Once dressed, you settle in a chair near the window. Thomas brings a tray with your morning meal. A piece of bread, some watered ale, and a small portion of cold fish left from last night's feast. This simple fare is closer to what a prosperous peasant might eat than the elaborate breakfast you normally enjoy. But Master Gilbert's advice about diet has been consistent over the years. The fewer rich foods, the better your chances of avoiding future attacks. As you eat, you hear the commotion of the Baron's departure in the courtyard below. Horses being brought around. Servants loading baggage. The Baron's booming voice giving instructions to his retinue. You should be there to bid him farewell formally, but both he and you understand that your absence will be attributed to your condition. In medieval society, gout provides a socially acceptable excuse for certain breaches of etiquette. It is, after all, recognized as an ailment of the nobility, almost a mark of status in itself. Lady Eleanina will handle the farewells, performing the role of chatelaine with the grace and authority that has made her as essential to your position as your own political acumen. The partnership between lord and lady is vital in medieval governance. While you manage external relations and official duties, she ensures that the household and estate function smoothly, that guests are properly hosted, that your shared reputation for hospitality enhances your political standing. From your window, you watch the baron's party assemble and depart, a colorful procession of horses, riders, and pack animals that winds down the road toward the village that forms part of your estate. The peasants will pause in their work as the nobles pass, bowing or curtsying as required, perhaps hoping for coins tossed by a generous lord in a good mood. Such interactions between ranks are highly ritualized. The difference of the lower classes balanced by the noblesse oblige of the aristocracy. Once the baron's party disappears from view, you allow yourself to relax slightly. The visit has achieved its purpose, strengthening your alliance with a powerful neighbor, exchanging valuable information about trade and royal politics, cementing your status within the regional nobility. These social connections are the invisible scaffolding that supports your position in the medieval hierarchy. Lady Elelenina joins you in your chamber, her face slightly flushed from the exertion of managing the baron's departure. She sits across from you, arranging her skirts with the unconscious grace of a woman who has lived her entire life under the scrutiny that nobility brings. The baron sends his regards and hopes for your swift recovery. She reports, he also mentioned that he suffers from similar attacks, though he tries to hide it. You nod, unsurprised. I noticed him favoring his right foot during the feast, too proud to acknowledge it openly. Of course, of course. She agrees with a small smile. He did say something interesting, though. Apparently, he's been consulting with a Jewish physician from York who recommends cherries as a remedy for gout. Claims they've reduced the frequency of his attacks. This catches your interest. Medieval medicine is a complex tapestry of traditions. The Galenic system of humors taught in European universities, herbal knowledge passed down through monastic infirmaries, folk remedies preserved by village healers, and knowledge from Islamic and Jewish physicians who often possess medical learning beyond what Christian Europe has preserved. Jewish doctors in particular are sought after by those who can afford their services, despite the general prejudice against Jews in medieval society. Cherries, you muse. I've not heard Master Gilbert mention those. They're difficult to obtain out of season, Elelenina points out. But we could preserve them next summer if you wish to try. The remedy. You make a mental note to discuss this with Master Gilbert. While the physician might be skeptical of advice from outside the Galenic tradition he was taught, he's practical enough to consider any remedy that might help his patients. The conversation turns to household matters, accounts that need reviewing, a dispute between two tenants that requires your judgment, plans for the winter months ahead. This is the daily business of lordship, the administrative foundation upon which your noble status rests. Unlike the kings and highest nobility, who can delegate most such tasks, the gentry and lesser nobility, like yourself, must remain actively involved in managing their estates. As midday approaches, the pain in your foot has subsided enough that you decide to venture downstairs. Using your staff for support, you make your way carefully to the small chamber off the great hall that serves as your office. Here, seated at a substantial oak table, you receive your steward's report on estate matters. The harvest is complete. My Lord Henry informs you, consulting a tally stick notched with records of grain. Collected better than last year, though not as abundant as we hoped. The mill has begun grinding, and the bakehouse reports the quality of flour is good. This is welcome news. The grain harvest determines not only your income for the year, as peasants pay part of their rent in crops, but also the general prosperity of your estate. A poor harvest means hunger for the peasants and reduced revenues for you. A good one means relative plenty for all and the ability to sell surplus grain for profit. And the wool clip you ask referring to the shearing of sheep that provides another major source of income sent to market last week. My lord, prices are down slightly due to the new tax, but still profitable. You discuss other matters. Repairs needed to tenants, cottages before winter, timber to be cut from your woodlands, preparations for the Christmas season that will bring its own round of feasting and obligations. Throughout your foot throbs steadily, a constant reminder of your physical vulnerability despite your social power. After the steward departs, Master Gilbert arrives for his daily examination of your condition. He unwraps the pus from your foot, his touch professional but gentle as he assesses the swelling and discoloration. Improving, he pronounces, though not as quickly as I would like. The feast was a setback, as I feared. You mention the Baron's Jewish physician, and his recommendation of cherries. Master Gilbert's expression remains neutral, but you detect a slight stiffening in his manner. Medieval physicians guard their professional authority carefully, and suggestions of alternative treatments can be seen as challenges to their expertise. Cherries are cooling in nature, he says after a moment, which might indeed help balance the hot humors that contribute to gout. When available, they could be a useful addition to your diet. This is a diplomatic response acknowledging the potential value of the suggestion, while maintaining his position as your primary medical authority. As Master Gilbert prepares a fresh pus, you broach the subject that has been on your mind since awakening. I've been considering changes to my daily regimen. You tell him, not just during attacks, but as a regular practice. The physician looks up, his interest clearly piqued. What sort of changes, my lord? Oh, simpler food daily. Not just when I'm suffering. More fish, fewer game birds and organ meats, less wine, more water. You pause, then add, and more physical activity. When I'm well walking the estate rather than always riding perhaps, Master Gilbert's face shows cautious approval. These would be wise adjustments, my lord. The body thrives on moderation. As Hippocrates teaches us, excess in food, drink, or sloth creates imbalances that manifest as ailments like gout. This reference to Hippocrates is typical of university-trained medieval physicians who base their practice on ancient Greek medical texts transmitted through Arab scholars and Latin translations. The theory of the four humors, blood phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, forms the foundation of their understanding, with health representing a balance among these substances and disease resulting from imbalance. The challenge, you admit, is maintaining such moderation when one's position demands otherwise. Feasts like yesterday's cannot be avoided entirely. True. The physician acknowledges applying the fresh pus to your foot, but they might be occasions rather than habits. And even during such events, careful choices can mitigate the harm. He wraps clean linen around your foot to secure the pus. I would be remiss, however, if I didn't mention another factor that affects the humors, which is the passions. My lord, anger, anxiety, excessive concern with worldly matters. These inflame the blood and contribute to conditions like gout. The ancients recommended tranquility of mind as essential to physical health. This advice reflects the medieval understanding that mental and physical well-being are intimately connected, that emotions affect bodily health directly through their influence on the humors. It's an early recognition of what modern medicine will one day call psychosomatic effects. You consider this thoughtfully. The life of a medieval lord is filled with concerns. Managing an estate, navigating political alliances, ensuring family succession, balancing the constant demands from above, your obligations to the king and higher nobility, and below, your responsibilities to those dependent on you. Tranquility seems an impossible luxury. Yet perhaps there are ways to create islands of calm within these responsibilities. Time for contemplation in the small chapel attached to your manor. Walks through your gardens. When weather permits, reading from the few precious books in your possession. Primarily religious texts, but also practical manuals on estate management, and a collection of ancient Roman writings that you particularly treasure. I will consider your advice. Regarding the passions you tell Master Gilbert, though I suspect that's a more difficult remedy to implement than dietary changes, he smiles slightly. The most valuable remedies often are, my lord. After the physician departs, you spend the remainder of the day attending to correspondence, dictating letters to your clerk, who writes them on parchment in a neat hand. Literacy is not universal among the nobility, but you were fortunate to receive education in a monastery school as a youth. The ability to read documents without relying entirely on others gives you an advantage in both business and politics. By evening, your foot feels substantially improved. The swelling has decreased, and while tenderness remains, the burning pain has subsided. You join Lady Elelenina for a simple supper in the small family dining chamber. Rather than the great hall beginning the dietary moderation you've resolved to adopt. The meal consists of fresh bread, a pottage of vegetables, a small portion of fish, and watered wine. It's satisfying without being excessive nourishing, without triggering the digestive processes that can lead to uric acid accumulation. Lady Elelenina has instructed the cook accordingly and plans to maintain this simpler affair as your regular diet, reserving richer foods for special occasions and important guests. How are you feeling? She asks as you finish the meal. Better, you admit. The attack is passing more quickly than the last one. Perhaps because we intervened earlier, she suggests, and the autumn crocus remedy seems particularly effective. You nod agreement. The Byzantine physicians who first documented the use of autumn crocus for gout stumbled upon what modern medicine will eventually recognize as a targeted treatment. The culturine contained in the plant specifically reduces the inflammation caused by uric acid crystals, making it one of the few truly effective treatments available in the medieval pharmacopea. After supper, you retire to the solar, a private family room in the upper part of the house, warmer and more comfortable than the great hall below. Here, away from the formal obligations of lordship, you can relax with family and closest household members. Your two youngest children join you, a daughter of 12 and a son of 9. The older children are already placed in other households as part of their education and preparation for adult roles. This fostering arrangement is common among the nobility, allowing children to build connections with other families while learning the skills appropriate to their station. The children are eager to hear about the baron's visit and the feast, which they observed only briefly before being sent to their chambers. Lady Elelenina indulges their curiosity while you sit with your foot elevated, watching the family interaction with quiet pleasure. This is another aspect of noble life that differs from the peasantry. The nature of family relationships. Peasant children remain with their parents, working alongside them from an early age. Noble children, by contrast, are often sent to other households or to specialized training. Daughters may enter convents for education. Sons might train as pages and squires in preparation for knighthood. The emotional distance this creates is considered necessary for developing the character and connections required of the nobility. As darkness falls, servants bring candles and stoke the small fireplace in the solar. The warm glow creates a cozy atmosphere as Lady Elelenina supervises the children's evening prayers before they're escorted to their chambers by their nurse. You should rest, she tells you once they've gone. Tomorrow, you have tenants' disputes to judge, and that requires a clear head. You know she's right. As lord of the manor, you serve as judge in the memorial court, settling disputes among your tenants according to local custom and your sense of justice. This judicial role is a fundamental aspect of lordship, one that directly affects the lives of those under your protection and authority. With your wife's assistance, you make your way back to your chamber, where Thomas has prepared everything for the night. Fresh linens on the bed, a cup of herbal tea to promote sleep, a chamber pot, discreetly positioned for nighttime needs. These small comforts of noble life are taken for granted until illness makes you appreciate them anew. As you settle into bed, you reflect on the day. The Baron's visit has strengthened an important alliance. Your estate's harvest is secure. Your gout is improving. And you've resolved to make changes that might prevent future attacks. All in all, a successful navigation of the challenges that come with your position. Yet underlying these practical matters is a deeper question that your gout has forced you to confront. What does it mean to be a good lord in medieval society? Is it possible to fulfill the obligations of your rank while avoiding the excesses that harm your health? Can you find a balance between the demands of status and the needs of your body? These are not questions that your peasants must ask themselves. Their challenges are more immediate: securing enough food, keeping shelter, sound, surviving the next winter or bout of disease. But perhaps there's wisdom to be found in their simpler approach to life. Eat what nourishes. Work with purpose. Rest when the body requires it. As sleep approaches, you wonder if your gout might be not just a curse, but also in some strange way, a blessing. A painful reminder of human limitations that even wealth and power cannot overcome. A prompt to find a more sustainable way to inhabit your privileged position in the rigid hierarchy of medieval society. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges: disputes to settle, correspondence to manage, estate matters to oversee. But perhaps it will also bring opportunities to implement the changes you've contemplated. Small adjustments that might over time allow you to fulfill your duties as Lord, while reducing the physical price you pay for privilege. The disease of kings has taught you a humbling lesson that beneath the trappings of rank and power, you remain subject to the same bodily vulnerabilities as the humblest peasant on your lands. Different in manifestation perhaps, but equal in their reminder of human frailty. With this thought, you drift towards sleep, your foot still throbbing gently but bearably, a physical echo of the day's reflections on the paradoxes of power and privilege in the medieval world. Outside your manor house, the estate settles into night. In the great hall below, servants bank the central hearth fire to keep embers alive until morning. Guards make their rounds along the walls and courtyards. In the stables, horses shift and snort in the darkness. The rhythms of medieval life continue, ordered by rank and custom, each person performing their allotted role in the great social tapestry. In the village beyond your walls, peasants sleep in their simple cottages, bodies tired from the day's harvest labor. Their dreams might include fantasies of noble life, the fine clothes, the abundant food, the leisure to pursue pleasure rather than necessity. They cannot know that in your grand bed with its feather mattress and linen sheets, you sometimes envy the physical resilience their lifestyle builds. This mutual incomprehension, the gap between how each rank imagines the other's experience, is part of what maintains the medieval social order. If peasants truly understood that lords suffer their own particular pains, if lords fully appreciated the wisdom contained in simpler ways of living, perhaps the rigid boundaries between classes might begin to blur. But such awareness is rare in your time. For most, the hierarchical world is simply the natural order, ordained by God and maintained by tradition. The Lord, in his manner, The peasant in his cottage, the priest in his church, the merchant in his shop. Each has a place with duties and privileges appropriate to that station. Your gout has granted you a glimpse across these boundaries, a recognition that human bodies share fundamental needs and vulnerabilities regardless of rank. Whether this insight will change how you wield your authority remains to be seen. But as sleep claims you, the possibility of a different approach to lordship, one that balances privilege with moderation, seems worth pursuing both for your health and for the well-being of those under your protection. The medieval world turns on its axis of inequality, each person bearing their particular burdens according to their station. For tonight, at least yours has eased enough to allow rest, a temporary reprieve in the ongoing negotiation between your social position and your physical nature. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, but also opportunities to apply the wisdom that suffering has taught you, if you have the courage to heed its lessons. Morning light seeps through the narrow window of your chamber, painting a pale rectangle across the rushes on the floor. You awaken to find your foot greatly improved, still tender when you flex your toe, but the angry swelling has subsided. Master Gilbert's remedies, particularly the autumn crocus, have done their work well this time. Thomas enters quietly, carrying a basin of warm water and fresh linens. "Good morning, my lord. How do you fare today?" "Better," you reply carefully, sitting up and placing your feet on the floor. The twinge in your toe is minimal, a vast improvement over the searing pain of 2 days ago. "I think I'll join the household for morning prayers." Thomas helps you dress in clothing appropriate for a lord attending to daily business. Good quality, but not overly formal. The heavily embroidered tunics, fur-lined cloaks, and elaborate accessories that you wear for important social and political occasions remain in their chests today. Such finery is not just decoration, but a form of communication in medieval society, instantly signaling your rank and prosperity to all who see you. With your walking staff in hand, still useful for support, though less necessary than before, you make your way to the small chapel attached to your manor house. Here your family household officers and personal servants gather each morning for prayers, led by your household chaplain, a priest whose services you retain not just for religious duties, but also for assistance with correspondence and record-keeping, as literacy is largely confined to the clergy. Lady Eleanor gives you a questioning look as you enter, silently asking about your condition. You nod slightly to indicate improvement. Your children present for morning prayers before beginning their daily lessons with another household. Cleric appear relieved to see you mobile again. Even at their young ages, they understand the importance of a lord's physical presence and the disruption that illness causes to the order of the household. After prayers, you join the family for a simple breakfast: bread, honey water, and a small portion of cheese. This meal, like supper, the previous evening, reflects your new resolution to moderate your diet. The kitchen staff, under Lady Elena's instruction, has adjusted their preparations accordingly. For a household accustomed to demonstrating its lord's status through abundant and rich food, this shift represents a significant change in thinking. With breakfast concluded, you proceed to the day's most important duty, presiding over the memorial court. This judicial function is fundamental to your role as lord, directly affecting the lives and livelihoods of your tenants. In the medieval legal system, such local courts handle most disputes and minor offenses, with only serious crimes reserved for royal justice. The court is held in the great hall, which has been arranged for the purpose. You sit in your lordly chair on the dais with your steward beside you to advise on matters of custom and precedent. The bailiff, who oversees the daily operation of your agricultural lands stands ready to provide information about specific fields or tenants. A clear sits at a small table prepared to record judgments in the court rolls that form the legal memory of your estate. Peasants from your villages and farms have gathered in the lower part of the hall, dressed in their best clothing, which is still crude by noble standards. Undyed wool tunics, simple caps removed in your presence, leather shoes for those who can afford them, bare feet or wooden clogs for those who cannot. They stand in small groups, speaking quietly among themselves while awaiting their turn before your judgment. The first case involves a boundary dispute between two tenant farmers. Their strips of land in the common fields have become confused after spring plowing, leading to accusations of encroachment. Both men approach the DIs, bowing. Awkwardly before presenting their claims, you listen carefully, then question the bailiff about the specific location and history of the disputed land. Such cases require Solomonic wisdom. The productivity of your estate depends on peaceful relations among your tenants and fair distribution of agricultural resources. After deliberation, you render a judgment that splits the disputed area, with each farmer receiving half. Neither is entirely satisfied, but both accept your decision without protest. Your authority as lord is rarely questioned openly, even when tenants might grumble privately. More cases follow. A miller accused of taking excessive payment for grinding grain. A woman claiming her deceased husband's rights to their cottage. A dispute over damage caused by wandering livestock. Each requires attention to local custom, awareness of family relationships within the village, and consideration of how your judgment will affect both the specific case and the broader community. Throughout the proceedings, your foot remains relatively comfortable, allowing you to focus on matters at hand rather than your physical discomfort. This is a welcome change from previous court sessions held during gout attacks when pain made concentration difficult and shortened your patience with the often tedious details of peasant disputes. The final case of the day proves the most challenging. A tenant named John Weaver has failed to perform his required labor service on your domain, land, the portion of the estate that produces directly for your household rather than being rented to tenants. The bailiff reports that this is John's third such offense this year. John approaches the DIS cap, clutched in calloused hands, eyes downcast in the presence of his lord. He's a thin man of middle years, his face weathered by a lifetime of outdoor labor. When asked to explain his absence from required work, he hesitates before responding. "My lord, my wife has been ill these past months, a wasting sickness that leaves her too weak to tend our home or care for our younger children. On the days I was called to your fields, there was no one else to fetch water, prepare food, or watch the little ones." The bailiff interjects. His oldest daughter could have managed those tasks. "My lord, she's of sufficient age." John shakes his head. "She was already working as a day laborer for the miller's wife, earning coin we sorely need for medicines. I could not call her home without losing that income. This presents a dilemma. Labor service is a fundamental obligation of tenancy in your feudal system. To ignore its neglect undermines the very foundation of your authority and economic power. Yet there is also an obligation of lords toward their people, a responsibility to show mercy when circumstances warrant." You consider John's situation carefully. His explanation rings true. You've heard reports of a persistent fever afflicting several families in the village this past summer. And unlike some tenants who shirk their duties out of laziness or defiance, John has previously been reliable in fulfilling his obligations. "What remedies has your wife received for her illness?" you ask, genuine concern, mixing with curiosity about the medical practices of your tenants. John looks surprised at the personal question. The village wise woman has provided herbal draughts, my Lord Feverfew, and chamomile mainly, and we've paid for prayers to be said at the parish church. This combination of herbal medicine and spiritual intervention is typical of peasant healthcare. Unlike you, they cannot afford physicians trained in Galenic theories of humors and sophisticated treatments. Their medicine is largely practical, based on traditional knowledge of local plants and their properties supplemented by religious practices believed to invoke divine healing. After a moment's reflection, you render your judgment. You will make up the missed Labor Days before Michaelmas. You tell John, referring to the important harvest festival at the end of September. But given the circumstances, no additional penalty will be imposed. This is a moderate response, maintaining your rights while acknowledging the genuine hardship that prevented their fulfillment. The wife looks slightly disapproving, preferring stricter enforcement of obligations, but accepts your decision without comment. John bows deeply, relief evident in his posture. Thank you for your mercy, my lord. The days will be made good. I swear it. As he turns to leave, you add, and John, tell your wife that Lady Alelanina will send remedies from our own stores that may help her recovery. This gesture, extending the benefits of your more sophisticated medicines to a tenant's family, is not required by custom or obligation. It's a personal choice, perhaps influenced by your own recent experience with illness and the value of effective remedies. The surprise and gratitude on John's face suggests such direct concern from lord to tenant is uncommon. With the court session concluded, you retire to your small office chamber for a midday meal. The morning's activities have tired you, but not exhausted you. Another sign of your improving condition. The simple food, bread, cheese, and a small portion of cold chicken provide sustenance without the heaviness that often follows the rich meals typically expected of your station. After eating, you dictate several letters to your clerk correspondence with neighboring lords about regional matters. Instructions to a merchant in London regarding goods to be purchased for the household. And a message to your eldest son, currently serving as a squire in another noble household as part of his knightly training. This last letter includes news of your gout attack, described in terms that acknowledge the condition without dwelling on its details. Excessive concern with bodily ailments is considered unseemly among the nobility, who are expected to bear physical discomfort with stoic dignity. As the clear seals the letters with your personal signet, Master Gilbert arrives for his daily examination of your condition. You dismiss the clear to allow private consultation with the physician. A marked improvement, my lord. Master Gilbert pronounces after examining your foot. The swelling has receded significantly and the color is nearly normal. The autumn crocus has proven particularly effective in your case. As you predicted, you acknowledge, and I've adhered to your advice regarding diet. Even during this morning's court session, when my patience was tested, the physician nods approvingly. Maintaining such moderation will serve you well. But now that the acute attack is passing, we must consider preventive measures to extend the period before the next occurrence. What follows is a detailed discussion of adjustments to your daily regimen foods to avoid or limit beverages to favor over wine forms of gentle exercise, appropriate to your station master. Gilbert also recommends regular consumption of certain herbs believed to cleanse the blood and balance the humors, dandelion root meadow and devil's claw among them. And what of cherries? You ask, remembering Baron Radcliffe's Jewish physician. Master Gilbert's expression remains professionally neutral. When in season, yes, their cooling properties may indeed help prevent the heat and inflammation of gout. We might also preserve them in honey for use throughout the year. This willingness to incorporate suggestions from outside his own training speaks well of Master Gilbert's practical approach to medicine. While many physicians of the era rigidly adhered to the theories taught in medical schools, primarily based on ancient Greek and Roman texts, the best practitioners also value empirical observation and are willing to adopt remedies that prove effective regardless of their source. After the physician departs, you decide to take advantage of your improved mobility and the fine autumn weather. With your walking staff as support, you venture into the gardens attached to your manor house. These are not merely decorative but serve practical purposes, providing herbs for the kitchen and medicine chest, flowers for household decoration, and a pleasant space for gentle exercise and contemplation. The garden paths are carefully maintained with gravel, making them suitable for walking, even in delicate health. As you move slowly along them, savoring the crisp air and the scent of late-blooming herbs, you reflect on the past few days and the insights your illness has prompted. The attack of gout, while painful, has forced a pause in your usual activities, a rare opportunity for reflection in the busy life of a medieval lord. The constant demands of managing an estate, navigating political relationships, and fulfilling the social obligations of your rank typically leave little time for considering deeper questions about how you live and rule. Yet these days of enforced rest have prompted exactly such thoughts. Is there a way to fulfill your duties as Lord while avoiding the physical excesses that trigger your gout? Can you find a balance between the expectations of your station and the needs of your body? Might there even be wisdom in the simpler lifestyles of those beneath you? In the social hierarchy, your contemplation is interrupted by the arrival of Lady Eleanina, who has come to check on your well-being. She falls into step beside you, her presence comfortable and familiar. After nearly 20 years of marriage, you seem deep in thought. She observes, "I've been considering changes." You reply, "Not just in diet and physical habits, but in how we conduct our household generally. The constant feasting, the emphasis on displaying our status through consumption. It takes a toll, not just on my health, but on our resources as well." She nods thoughtfully. "I've had similar reflections. The waste from our table alone could feed several tenant families, and the cost of spices and imported luxuries has increased substantially in recent years. This practical consideration of economics alongside health reflects Lady Eleanina's role as manager of the household. While you oversee the productive aspects of the estate agriculture, timber rents and taxes, she controls its consumption, balancing the needs of daily life with the social requirements of your position. What changes did you have in mind? She asks. Simpler, fare daily, with elaborate meals reserved for important guests and significant occasions, more time spent in useful activity rather than idle pastimes, perhaps even more direct engagement with the management of our lands. This last suggestion represents a significant departure from typical noble behavior. While lords oversee their estates through officials like stewards and bailiffs, they rarely involve themselves in the practical details of agricultural management. Such hands-on work is considered beneath their dignity, better left to those trained specifically for such tasks. Lady Eleanina considers your words carefully. Such changes would be noticed, she points out. Questions might arise about our prosperity or your vigor as lord. This is a valid concern. In medieval society, consumption and display are not merely personal choices, but social communications. A lord who suddenly lives more simply might be perceived as suffering financial difficulties or losing political power. Such perceptions can become self-fulfilling as allies distance themselves from those they perceive as declining in fortune. Perhaps you suggest we present it not as reduction, but as refinement, not less, but more discerning quality over quantity. She smiles, appreciating the subtle distinction that could work. The finest ingredients prepared, simply, rather than elaborate concoctions, the best cloth in classic styles, rather than excessive ornamentation, discrimination, rather than abstention. This approach offers a way to moderate your lifestyle without undermining your social position, a middle path between the excesses that harm your health and the simplicity that would compromise your status. As you complete your circuit of the garden and turn back toward the manor house, you feel a sense of possibility that has been absent during previous gout attacks. Instead of merely enduring the pain and returning to the same habits once it passes, you've begun to envision a different approach to lordship, one that might protect your health while still fulfilling your social and political obligations. The challenge will be implementation. Translating these reflections into practical changes that can be sustained against the constant pressure of custom and expectation. Medieval society is deeply conservative, resistant to innovation or deviation from established patterns. To chart a different course, even in personal habits, requires both conviction and diplomacy. But as you return to the manor house, your foot comfortable enough that the walking staff feels more precautionary than necessary. You're determined to try. This attack of gout, the disease of kings, has offered a painful but valuable lesson in the limitations of privilege and the wisdom that can be found in moderation. The afternoon passes with routine business, reviewing accounts with your steward, discussing repairs to a tenant's cottage damaged by recent rains, planning for the upcoming plowing of winter wheat fields. These administrative tasks are the invisible foundation of your authority, ensuring that your lands remain productive and your tenants secure under your protection. By evening, you're tired but satisfied with the day's accomplishments. Your foot has remained comfortable enough to allow normal activity, though you've been careful not to overexert yourself. The dietary moderation continues at supper, a simple meal of bread, fish, and vegetables with watered wine, rather than the full-strength vintage you typically favor. As darkness falls and the household prepares for sleep, you reflect on the day. A successful return to your duties as Lord managed without compromising your health. It's a small victory, but an encouraging one, suggesting that the balance you seek between position and well-being might indeed be possible. The candles are extinguished, and the manor house settles into the profound darkness of the medieval night. Outside, a guard calls the hours, his voice carrying across the quiet courtyard. From the village beyond your walls comes the occasional bark of a dog or the distant lowing of cattle, but otherwise silence reigns as your people rest in preparation for another day of labor. In your comfortable bed, with Lady Eleanena sleeping beside you, you drift towards sleep with a sense of cautious optimism. The worst of your gout attack has passed, leaving behind not just relief, but insight. The disease of kings has taught you something about the nature of nobility itself. That true lordship might lie not in excess, but in wisdom. Not in consumption, but in cultivation of a life that balances privilege with restraint. Whether this lesson will endure beyond the memory of pain remains to be seen. The pressures of your position, the expectations of your peers, the deep-rooted habits of a lifetime, all will push against the changes you've contemplated. But for tonight, at least you rest easily, your body healing and your mind open to new possibilities for inhabiting your role in the intricate hierarchy of medieval society. 3 months have passed since your most recent gout attack, and winter has settled firmly over your estate. Snow blankets, the fields, and ice forms delicate patterns on the inner sides of your chamber windows each morning. The great hall's central hearth burns constantly now, and even the small fireplaces in private chambers are kept lit day and night to ward off the penetrating cold that is the constant companion of medieval life in winter. You stand at your chamber window, watching servants and stable boys clear paths through the snow in the courtyard below. Your breath forms small clouds in the cold air near the glass. The toe that was once swollen and fiery with pain now feels no different from its fellows. A blessed relief that you've come to appreciate more deeply after each attack. These past months have been a time of experimentation and adjustment. Following your resolution during the last bout of gout, you've maintained the dietary moderation that Master Gilbert recommended: less meat, particularly organ meats, and game, more fish and vegetables. Wine diluted with water, rather than consumed full strength. The household has adapted to these changes, though not without some initial resistance from the kitchen staff, who viewed the simple affair as a reflection on their skills. Lady Elelenina solved this problem with characteristic diplomacy, challenging the cooks to create dishes that showcase the natural flavors of ingredients rather than disguising them under heavy sauces and excessive spices. This reframing, presenting simplicity as sophistication rather than deprivation, has proven effective, not just with your own household, but with guests as well. My Lord Thomas says, entering the chamber with a small wooden box, Master Gilbert has sent the new remedy he mentioned. You turn from the window with interest. During his last visit, the physician spoke of an unusual treatment for preventing gout attacks that he had learned from an Italian colleague. The medieval medical community, while limited by modern standards, does engage in a surprising degree of international communication. Physicians from different countries correspond about cases and treatments, share translated texts from Greek and Arabic sources, and adapt their practices based on reported successes elsewhere. Thomas opens the box to reveal a collection of small cloth pouches, each containing a mixture of dried herbs and other substances. Master Gilbert instructs that one pouch should be steeped in hot water each morning and the resulting liquid consumed before breaking your fast, he explains. You examine one of the pouches, untying it to inspect the contents. A blend of various herbs, some recognizable willow bark, meadow celery seeds, and others unfamiliar, along with what appears to be a small amount of crushed gemstone. This inclusion of gemstone material reflects the medieval belief that certain precious and semi-precious stones possess medicinal properties. Sapphires are thought to cool the body and reduce inflammation, while rubies are believed to warm the blood and strengthen the heart. Whether these substances actually provide any benefit is questionable by modern standards, but their inclusion in remedies for nobility serves both medical and social purposes, demonstrating the physician's commitment to providing the finest treatment while acknowledging the patient's elevated status. I'll begin tomorrow, you decide, retying the pouch and placing it back in the box. Tell Master Gilbert, I appreciate his continued attention to my health. Thomas bows and withdraws, leaving you to return to your contemplation of the winter landscape. The physical changes you've implemented: diet, exercise remedies are only part of the transformation prompted by your recurring battles with gout. More significant are the shifts in how you view your role as Lord and your relationship with those under your authority. Since that autumn attack, you've taken a more direct interest in the management of your estate. Rather than relying entirely on reports from your steward and bailiff, you now regularly inspect fields, barns, and workshops. Personally, walking your lands when weather permits and speaking directly with tenants about their work and challenges. This more hands-on approach is unusual among the nobility. Most lords prefer to maintain distance from the practical aspects of estate management, viewing such direct involvement as beneath their dignity. But you found unexpected benefits in this closer engagement. Better information about the actual conditions of your lands, improved relationships with tenants who appreciate your personal interest, and not least the physical activity that Master Gilbert insists helps prevent gout attacks. The winter season has temporarily limited these outdoor activities, but it has provided other opportunities for implementing changes. The long evenings have allowed for more reading, not just religious texts and estate accounts, but also some of the classical works that have survived from ancient times. Your small collection includes copies of writings by Cicero, Seneca, and Boethius, whose discussions of moderation, wisdom, and the proper use of power resonate with your evolving approach to lordship. Lady Elelonena has noticed these changes with approval. Last evening, as you sat together in the solar after the children had been sent to bed, she commented on the difference in your demeanor. You seem more at peace. She observed her fingers busy with embroidery, while you read by candlelight, not just in body, but in spirit as well. Her perception is accurate. The painful experience of gout has led to a kind of wisdom that might not have come through easier paths. The disease of kings has taught you something about the nature of power itself, that true authority lies not in excess, but in balance, not in consumption, but in careful stewardship of resources both personal and communal. These reflections are interrupted by a knock at your chamber door. The steward enters, his face concerned. My lord, riders have just arrived from the village of Oakley. He reports, referring to the most distant settlement on your lands, some 5 miles from the manor house. There's been a fire, 3 cottages burned in the night. This is serious news. Winter fires are a constant danger in medieval villages, where thatched roofs, open hearths, and the desperate need for warmth create conditions ripe for disaster, and winter is the worst possible time for families to lose their homes, with few options for rebuilding until spring. Were there casualties, you ask, already? Moving to collect your heavy cloak and boots. Or one elderly man died in his sleep from the smoke. 2 others suffered burns but will recover. The villagers managed to contain the fire before it spread further. You nod grimly. The death is tragic, but not unexpected. Fire claims many lives each winter across medieval Europe. Your immediate concern must be for the survivors and their needs. Have the kitchens prepare food supplies for the affected families you instruct, and have the BAFE assess what building materials can be spared from our stores. I'll ride to Oakley myself to survey the damage. The steward looks surprised at this last statement. The roads are treacherous with snow. My lord, perhaps the BAFE could go in your stead? In the past, you might have agreed a lord's personal appearance at such a local disaster, while appreciated, is not strictly necessary. Your authority can be exercised through officials who represent you. But your thinking has evolved over these past months. I will go. You state firmly, those are my people, and they should see that their lord responds to their distress in person. Have my horse prepared and select 4 men to accompany me. As the steward departs to carry out these instructions, you finish dressing for winter travel. Layers of woolen clothing beneath a heavy cloak lined with fur, thick gloves and sturdy boots. Physical comfort is one privilege of your rank that you have no intention of abandoning, especially when facing the bitter cold of a January journey. Lady Elelina finds you as you're about to depart. Her face concerned, but supportive. Be careful on the roads, she cautions, and take care that your feet don't become too cold. Master Gilbert warns that extreme cold can trigger gout as readily as rich food. Her concern touches you. In many noble marriages, arranged for political and economic advantage rather than affection, such personal care is not guaranteed. You and Alelanina have been fortunate your union, while initially planned by your families, for the usual practical reasons, has developed into a partnership of genuine respect and affection. I'll be cautious, you promise, and I should return before nightfall. The journey to Oakley is indeed challenging. The roads, little more than dirt tracks in good weather, are now snow-covered and slippery. Your horse moves carefully, breath steaming in the cold air. The men accompanying you, 2 household guards and 2 servants, remain vigilant for the multiple hazards of winter travel. From hidden ice to the rare but real possibility of wolves driven by hunger to approach human settlements. The medieval landscape through which you travel appears deceptively peaceful under its blanket of snow. Fields lie dormant, waiting for spring planting. The forests that provide timber, game and foraging for your estate stand silent, their bare branches etched against the gray sky. Occasional wood smoke rising from cottages or charcoal burners, camps provides the only sign of human activity. This apparent tranquility masks the constant struggle for survival that defines winter in medieval Europe. For the peasants on your lands, these months are the most precarious. Stored food dwindles. Illness spreads in close quarters, and the cold itself becomes an enemy to be fought with insufficient weapons. Unlike you, they cannot afford multiple layers of fine wool and fur-lined cloaks. Their cottages lack the fireplaces and chimneys that make your mana bearable in winter. Their diets, already simple in plentiful seasons, become increasingly sparse as stored provisions diminish. Your gout, painful as it is, seems a minor burden when compared to their winter hardships, yet there is a connection between your condition and theirs. Both reflect the realities of medieval life, the constraints that even wealth and power cannot fully overcome. Your body, for all its privileged care, remains vulnerable to imbalances and excesses. Their bodies hardened by labor and simple fair face, different but equally serious threats from cold, hunger, and disease. Oakley comes into view as you crest a small hill, a cluster of perhaps 30 cottages surrounding a small stone church, smoke still rising from the site of the fire on the village's eastern edge. As your party approaches, villagers emerge from their homes, surprised to see their lord in person, rather than a representative. You dismount carefully, your body stiff from the cold ride. The bailiff of Oakley, a man appointed from among the villages to oversee local matters and represent your authority, hurries forward, bowing deeply. "My lord, we didn't expect you yourself," he says, his weathered face showing both respect and concern. "The roads are dangerous in this weather. I came to see the damage firsthand." You reply, handing your horse's reins to one of your men. "Show me the affected cottages and the families who have lost their homes." The bailiff leads you through the village to the burned buildings. 3 cottages stand in ruins, their timber frames blackened and partially collapsed, thatch roofs entirely consumed by the flames. The snow around them has melted and refrozen into dirty ice, and the bitter smell of smoke still hangs in the air. Gathered nearby are the displaced families, 11 people in total, including children who are currently being sheltered by neighbors. Their faces show the stunned expression common to disaster victims throughout history, a mixture of grief, shock, and uncertainty about the future. You approach them directly, setting aside the usual distance maintained between lord and tenant. "I'm sorry for your losses," you say simply, "particularly for Martin Cooper, who died in the fire, the eldest among them." A woman whose lined face suggests a life of hardship nods acknowledgment. "He was my father, my lord, 82 years old, and blind. These past 5 he wouldn't have felt much, God be thanked. The smoke took him before the flames reached his bed. This stoic acceptance of death is characteristic of medieval peasants, for whom mortality is an ever-present reality. Unlike the nobility, who can often afford elaborate medical care and who mark their deaths with expensive funerals and tomb monuments, common people face death with pragmatic recognition of its inevitability and frequency. We've brought food from the manor. You tell them. Gesturing to the packs your servants are unloading, and I've instructed the bailiff to assess what building materials can be provided from our stores. When weather permits, we'll begin rebuilding your homes. This commitment goes beyond what custom or feudal obligation requires. A lord is expected to provide basic protection and justice to his tenants, but direct material assistance following disasters is a matter of individual conscience rather than established duty. Some lords would offer minimal help or none at all, considering such misfortunes the peasants' problem to solve among themselves. Thank you, my lord. The woman responds, genuine gratitude in her voice. We feared we'd have to wait until spring. Thorbild. Winter is hard enough with a roof over one's head. You acknowledge, no one on my lands should face it without shelter, if I can help it. This statement represents the evolution in your thinking about lordship. A shift from seeing your position primarily in terms of rights and privileges to understanding it equally in terms of responsibilities and care. The disease of kings has humbled you in some ways, making you more aware of human vulnerability regardless of rank, more conscious of the interdependence that undergirds the seeming hierarchy of medieval society. You spend the next hour inspecting the damage more thoroughly, consulting with the village carpenter about rebuilding needs and ensuring that the displaced families have immediate necessities. The cold is penetrating, and you're conscious of Lady Elena's warning about chilled feet potentially triggering your gout. Still, you remain until satisfied that everything possible is being done under the circumstances. As you prepare to depart, the elderly woman approaches again, something clutched in her genailed hands. For your kindness, my lord, she says, offering a small cloth pouch, similar to those containing Master Gilbert's remedies. My mother taught me to make this for joint pains. It helped my father when his hands knotted with age. You accept the humble gift with genuine appreciation, recognizing it as a significant gesture from someone who has little to give. What does it contain? You ask nettles, gathered in spring, dried and crushed. She explains, willow bark too, and a bit of meadow. Sweet, steep it in hot water, and drink it when the pain comes. The ingredients are remarkably similar to some of Master Gilbert's prescriptions, though lacking the exotic additions and theoretical framework that characterize formal medieval medicine. This folk remedy passed through generations of practical experience, rather than academic study, represents another kind of medical knowledge, one based on observation and tradition, rather than ancient texts and university learning. I'll use it with gratitude. You promise carefully, tucking the pouch into your cloak. This exchange, a lord accepting healing knowledge from a peasant woman, would seem unusual to many of your peers who maintain rigid distinctions between their own sophisticated medical care and the superstitious practices of common people. But your experience with gout has made you more open to wisdom from unexpected sources. The return journey to your manor passes without incident, though darkness is falling as you arrive. Lady Elena greets you with relief, having worried about winter travel hazards over a simple but warming supper. You describe the situation in Oakley and the assistance you've promised. A generous response, she comments, approvingly, more than most lords would offer. Perhaps you acknowledge, but it seems to me that true lordship lies in protection and care, not just collecting rents and services. These past months have shown me that privilege brings responsibility alongside its comforts. She smiles, recognizing how much your thinking has evolved since that painful autumn day when gout laid you low. The disease of kings has taught you something about being a better lord. It seems, indeed, you agree. Raising your cup of watered wine in a small salute, pain can be an effective teacher when we're willing to learn its lessons. That night, as you prepare for bed, you realize that your feet remain comfortable despite the day's exertions and exposure to cold. Whether through the dietary changes, Master Gilbert's remedies, increased physical activity, or some combination of these factors, your gout has remained at bay through the early winter months when attacks were previously common. More significantly, the perspective gained through your experience with gout has transformed your approach to lordship itself. The painful reminder of bodily vulnerability, common to all humans, regardless of rank, has fostered a greater sense of connection with those under your protection. The recognition that excess harms rather than enhances has led to moderation, not just in diet, but in how you wield authority. The awareness that wisdom can come from unexpected sources has opened you to knowledge beyond the usual channels of noble education. These are profound shifts in a society where rank and hierarchy are considered divinely ordained and immutable. Medieval culture does not encourage questioning established social roles or the privileges that accompany them, yet your personal experience has led you to a more nuanced understanding of your position, not rejecting its authority, but redefining how that authority is best exercised. As sleep approaches, you reflect that perhaps this is the hidden gift within the disease of kings. Not just the physical reminder of human limitations, but the opportunity to develop a wiser approach to power itself. Gout, for all its painful manifestations, has offered a lesson in balance that extends far beyond diet and physical habits. Outside your manor house, winter holds the medieval world in its grip. In villages across your lands, peasants huddle around meager fires, making do with dwindling food stores until spring brings renewal. In the homes of neighboring lords, other nobles feast less moderately than you now do. Some perhaps already feeling the first twinges of the crystalline deposits that signal impending gout attacks. In monasteries and universities, physicians continue their studies of humoral theory, seeking understanding of conditions like gout through ancient texts rather than modern scientific methods. This is the world you inhabit. A time of rigid social distinctions, yet profound human commonalities, of limited medical knowledge, yet careful observation of patterns and effects, of hierarchical authority, yet mutual dependence between ranks. Your gout, the disease of kings, has given you a unique window into these paradoxes, allowing you to see beyond the superficial differences to the shared vulnerabilities and needs that unite all people in the medieval world. As you drift towards sleep, warm beneath layers of blankets, while winter winds howl outside your manor walls, you silently acknowledge this unexpected wisdom. The pain of gout, intense, debilitating, humbling, has revealed truths about your society and your place within it that might have remained hidden in its absence. For this painful enlightenment, you are somewhat ironically grateful. The disease of kings has made you, in subtle but meaningful ways, a better lord. And in a world where lordship is not just a privilege, but a responsibility for the lives and well-being of many, this personal growth extends its benefits far beyond your own comfort. The peasants of Oakley, with promised materials for rebuilding their homes, despite winter's challenges, are just the first to experience the practical effects of your transformed understanding. Perhaps this is how societies evolve, not through grand revolutions or dramatic upheavals, but through individual revelations that gradually reshape how power is understood and exercised. Your gout, painful as it is, may be contributing in its small way to such evolution, creating ripples of change that extend outward from your personal experience to affect all those within your sphere of influence. This thought brings a sense of purpose to your suffering, a meaning beyond the mere physical discomfort that periodically disrupts your life. The disease of kings becomes not just an affliction to be endured, but a teacher whose lessons might in time benefit king and commoner alike. With this comforting reflection, you surrender to sleep, your body at ease and your mind at peace. Despite the winter cold that grips your medieval world, outside stars shine in the clear night sky. The same stars that have witnessed countless generations navigating the challenges of their times, finding wisdom, sometimes in unlikely places, even in the painful swelling of a noble's toe. The crystalline deposits that cause your suffering contain paradoxically a kind of clarity, a window into truths about power, privilege, and human connection that might otherwise remain obscured by the trappings of rank and status. In this way, the worst thing about being rich in medieval times, the painful affliction of gout, transforms into an unexpected gift, the opportunity to become a wiser steward of the wealth and authority that define your place in the intricate tapestry of medieval society.